Hey guys, welcome back to CLOWNFISH TV. This is Neon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we weren't going to do, well, actually, we're going to do another live stream later tonight. We don't have enough time to do that right now, so we're going to do this one.
Well, we had to change the
We had to change, yeah. Our guest had to reschedule, but we're going to talk about something we weren't originally going to talk about.
No, yeah, we weren't going to talk about it originally. We're going to stay out of it.
We were going to stay out of it. We are kind of staying out of it. I just think you want to comment on this situation because the entire comic book industry is commenting on this situation right now.
Right.
This is actually, at first I was like, well, we don't want to go there because, actually, disclaimer, we have met Mark Waid. We've known Mark Waid off and on. We haven't really, we don't really know him that well, but I didn't want to go there. But considering that this is sort of becoming like a make or break moment, I think for the comic book industry right now, it's something that's worth talking about, discussing, giving our 2 cents.
Hey guys, yeah, we're back.
Hey, yeah, we're back.
We've been back. We just haven't had time to stream. So.
Yeah, we haven't had time to stream. We
like
I said, we travel often. We were out of town for like a week, and we're running to catch up. And we haven't been trying to blow off YouTube or anything, but we had like a million other things we had to get done. So so what we're going to talk about is the situation with. Well, I'm considering the entire comic book industry versus ComicsGate is pretty much what this has turned into. I mean, it really has. It started out as Richard Meyer suing Mark Waid for interfering with a contract with Antarctic Press.
Well, no, according to Mark Waid's GoFundMe, it's not because that. You're just paying him to help defend people like me that are female or people of color or, whatever, from people like you who are just mean white men.
To defend comics' honor and virtue from the mean white men of the comic book industry.
But that's okay. He's honest and sincere because he was on the New York Times bestseller list. And that automatically equals honesty.
Okay,
Never mind that they're cheated so often it's not funny, but
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, it started out as basically, Meyer serving papers to Mark Waid. It has turned into this like ridiculous circus.
It is.
I mean, we were gone for like a week and we've got like Wade's lawyer making ridiculous comments on Twitter.
That's really dumb.
We've got.
I'm not a lawyer, but I can't think that's a good thing.
That's not a good thing.
I got back and I was like, I went onto Twitter and I got back and I literally felt my blood pressure rise the moment I logged on. I'm like, why am I even on here? Because I know I'm just going to get mad. So what's the point?
God. And then we've got like Mark Waid out there. Mark Waid, who's pretty well off. I mean, I don't know his financial situation, but
we know people who know.
We know people who know him, and he's pretty well off, as I understand it. Out there kind of like panhandling for money on GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe has kind of turned into a who's who of the comic book industry.
Well, it's kind of funny. A couple things here. One, I think that their legal plan is basically, let's see, we'll just keep holding out and postponing until he runs out of money. I think was what they were thinking. That's why, we're just kind of like, it's awfully odd that this close to it, that's when they start asking for extensions. But I think that's what they were planning on doing, was let's just hang out and hold out until he runs out of money type thing.
Yeah, it's almost like just running out of money.
No, She-Ra wasn't canceled, sadly.
Sure wasn't.
Not yet.
It's funny though. Just a funny anecdote about She-Ra. Geeky was all excited yesterday. They announced that you could go to.
Well, it was a couple days before. It was the 28th.
The She-Ra website and experience new She-Ra in VR and so.
I was going to do it because I had the stuff to do it.
She had our son hooked her up to the PS4 VR and she was ready to delve into the world of DreamWorks She-Ra, and the link had been pulled down.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's been canceled. But
so anyway, now there's fireworks. That's because they heard we were on. They're giving us fireworks. There's fireworks going on in the background. Okay. Anyway.
So I don't even know where to start on this. Everybody who's watching this probably knows the story. I'll give a little recap for people who don't. So there's this guy out there called Diversity in Comics. He's got a YouTube channel. He says things that some people don't like.
And sometimes I will admit there's things he says that I don't like.
I think he's backed off a little bit, as I understand it. From, I mean, there were some things he said that were kind of like, dude,
I think he did go too far sometimes. I will be the first to say it. And unfortunately, what happened was when he went too far, they just labeled everyone as that, and that's the go-to example. Well, they said this, they said that. No, they didn't. One person said that.
If you say I don't want Riri Williams to be Iron Man just because I don't want Riri Williams to be Iron Man, all of a sudden it was like, well, did you know that Diversity in Comics had the Dark Roast? It's like, what does that have to do with anything?
Wasn't there.
I've never even listened to it. Like,
but
I
I'm
don't
just saying
care.
they kind of dismiss everyone, and everyone who has a different opinion automatically based on stuff that he said, which isn't fair either. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Continue.
So anyway, there was some feuding back and forth. There was some scheming behind closed doors, as I understand it. It's a group of comic book professionals. I'm going to use the term loosely because this is not how professionals behave, but they were going to confront Diversity in Comics at New York Comic Con.
Oh, and they all claim that didn't happen. That didn't happen, even though there was screen capture. That didn't happen. They said it didn't happen, so it didn't happen. Because, don't you know, if you plug your ears and go la 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 la, that makes it that's how they behave.
Yeah, pretty much. So then it sort of reached peak idiocy when Diversity in Comics, aka Richard Meyer, goes to take his crowdfunded book to Antarctic Press. And Mark Waid publicly announces that he's going to make some phone calls and make sure that they knew exactly what kind of person they're
he did it publicly. He said he was going to do
did.
it. He bragged about doing it, and then he bragged about afterwards.
He bragged about the whole thing. I'm like, dude,
when I got mad.
I was like, dude, if you're gonna be sneaky, you be sneaky in the shadows. You don't broadcast your sneakiness.
Because that's what I think a lot of people actually, I think that's what a lot of people started to be like, wait, what is going on? Because that is censorship. That is what that is.
Right.
That is censorship.
And that's, I mean, my feeling, like, regardless of what you think of Richard Meyer, Diversity in Comics, like, the comic book industry really doesn't have they think they have the right to basically keep out people they don't like, to keep out people with differing political opinions. That's really what it boils down to is differing. It's politics. It's politics. So anyway, so it turns out that what Mark Waid did is potentially, I'm no lawyer, but people have said it's potentially illegal. It's called tortious interference, which is basically he had no skin in the game.
That's right. Like if he knew these people, or he, that's
if they were
different.
business partners or something, and he's
didn't.
like, right, and he didn't. So he went and tried to tank, which he did. He successfully tanked the publishing deal with Antarctic Press. Let's go here as we're talking about it, so people kind of know what's going on here. And so then Diversity in Comics, Richard Meyer is going to self-publish the book. It was supposed to come out, through comic shops and all that. Well, it's not going to happen. And what possibly maybe could have happened, with Waid knowing as many people in the industry as he does, and knowing as many retailers as he does, he could have used a threat against Antarctic and basically said, look, I'm going to tell everybody not to buy your books anymore.
Yeah, we don't know that.
We don't know exactly what was said. But it was enough to scare.
I think that's what happened too.
It was enough to scare Antarctic off from Richard Meyer, and Antarctic has published other right-wing comics. They publish My Hero Macadamia or whatever it is, the Trump anime comic, and some other stuff that is right-leaning.
Well, here's my thing.
So
there's a lot of people who say a lot of things I don't like, or I don't agree with, or I think we're really uncalled for, and they get publishing deals. And I do not take it upon myself to go contact their publishers and be like, you know what? Did you know they did this, and this? You should take their deal away. I don't do that because, well, one, they wouldn't listen to me anyway. They'd be like, who cares what you say? But two, that would just be a douchey thing to do because I'm assuming the publisher knows who they're dealing with. I'm sure he looked into that. And, you just move on. They're going to get a book deal. I don't like that person. I think they said some crappy things, but, you can complain about their book when it comes out. Like I'm going to complain about Sheer when it comes out. But,
yeah, but I mean, this is sort of an extension.
Call anybody's publisher and get their book.
No, I mean, look, we can say, hey, we don't like the look of New She-Ra. We'll give it a shot or whatever, but we really don't care. But we're not going to call for Noelle Stevenson to be fired over it either. I mean, that's just kind of ridiculous. Like, it's
I
just,
didn't say-
we won't watch it.
I
you
guess
know
the way
what
I
mean?
look at it is in everything, be it entertainment or comics, the customers will decide, and if they don't sell, then and they have to be canceled, then you made a bad decision, and that's how I look at it. So I think a lot of people got mad was when he took it upon himself to try to get, and he did get the deal. By his own bragging, got the deal canceled.
Yeah, and that's what gets me. It was like, Mark Waid took it upon himself to be the high sparrow of the comic book industry. He is a high profile writer. However, I think he way overstepped.
Yeah, he just overstepped.
I mean, people talk smack about rivals.
Yeah,
and
you
businessing all
can
the time, but
say,
this is
hey,
a
I
whole
don't
nother
like this
level
person.
of,
I don't like what they do. I'm not going to buy their book. Don't buy their books. I don't like them. That's one thing. But this was just overstepping. I think it was overstepping. And if someone had done the same thing in reverse from the other side, I would have said the exact same thing. That was overstepping.
Right, and I think I think Mark, and here's the thing, like, I'd like to say that, maybe he honestly thinks he's doing the right thing, like he's defending.
I think he honestly thinks he is.
Yeah, but I think he's also, I think there's some ego in there because he has been the target of
his own
diverse. Well, yeah, but I'm just saying. Okay, so
when you look at his own thing, there's definitely ego involved.
So this is what got me.
This amused me so much.
Like, so Mark Waid goes
and
out
he puts this picture of him looking at the distance, like, look, you were just waiting for like the American anthem behind him and everything else with the Superman hat on.
Oh my God, Mark, come on, dude. So he's out on GoFundMe to raise money for legal fees. Mark has money. As far as I know, he's got money. So, but this is more like I think,
How much did he have? I didn't even see.
He has 68,000 compared to Diversity in Comics, who has almost.
And that's been up for
almost
80,000. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, he's almost 80,000 already.
So the whole stall them out, that tactic isn't going to work.
This isn't going to work. Mark has kind of
Anyway, so go ahead.
And there's one on here. I just pulled this up, and there's one on here. A couple people gave like freaking $12,000 anonymous. I honestly, and there were a couple on here that were here. Let's see what the highest donations are. 12,000, 10,000, 10,000, 2,000. I have to wonder if there are some people, high-ranking folks in the comic book industry, kicking some money over.
I don't know.
They're
all signing their name on the ones for Waid.
Yeah, there's a lot of anonymous donations on Richard Myers, but then you go Mark Waid, and that's what's kind of funny too. It's like it is a virtual
anonymous there too.
Who's who of the comic book industry. If you start going down,
what's the highest ones he's got?
I don't know.
Probably himself.
No, I don't know. 10,000, 2,000. Humberto Ramos, John Holmes, Dan Slott gave him $500.
We don't have to go through the list.
No, but I'm saying Dan Slott, who he has skin in this because he's been on the receiving end of Diversity in Comics videos, so of course he wants to see. Dan Slott's got money too.
But anyway, so go
He
down here.
should get more than that.
Okay, so what got me was. Okay, look, he got this picture, and then he starts with, I'm Mark Waid. I'm a New York Times best-selling comics writer. So that's the first thing he writes, like, because I'm a New York Times best-selling writer, obviously I'm honest, obviously I'm upstanding, obviously I'm standing for the truth, because I have this acknowledgement. We've already talked before, guys, about how easy it is to cheat the New York Times bestsellers list, but beyond that, of course you're a bestseller when you're attached to a property with a major name to it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I would do a book that was like a Star Wars book or something like that, not now necessarily, but you know what I'm saying? It has a main IP name attached to it. Of course it's going to hit the effing bestseller list. It has little or nothing to do with me. So, I'm just saying.
The thing about this, though, and this is really what kind of, because originally we're going to kind of stay out of it. Just an armchair observation. And again, disclaimer, we have had interactions with Mark. They've never been negative.
No, he's never been mean to us.
No, he's never. I mean,
I was just like, dude.
We've heard of the tantrums from
people who have
worked with him closer than we have. We did not see that from Mark. Actually, Mark was very professional
very
with us.
Nice. He said I was a good writer. So,
yeah,
I'll give him that.
I don't have
taste.
I don't have any, like, I can't, if you're looking for like a
personal reason,
a personal Mark Waid story, I don't have one to give you.
I was all like, my thing that got me was when he went and did that, when he did the censorship thing. That's what got me, was the censorship thing. Because I was like, dude, this is like explain against
you don't
what
have
you say
to like him, but you know what? You can't and again, you're bringing a third party into it. You're going to another publisher that you don't even know. You have no content, and stirring shit up just because you have a personal grudge.
Yes.
Against, because you think you're on some holy crusade.
Well, he even says that in here. This is what got me. This is what got me about this. What got me about this GoFundMe is it is not about what the lawsuit's about, and that's what I was like. Okay, first of all, you just did censorship, what you did. And then you're going to turn around and make it that you're getting sued for something that's not even really what happened. And that's why I was like, dude, it's like, that's not what happened.
I mean, he announced, that's the thing. He announced he was going to intervene. He took it upon himself. I mean, it wasn't like, golly gee, Mark Waid was walking along, something bad happened, and he got, caught up in this mess, and he doesn't know what happened. He announced publicly, I am going to shut this guy down.
Yeah, that's what
Watch me go shut this guy down. Did I mention I'm going to shut him down? And then when I shut him down, I'm going to brag about it. I mean,
and I'll be like I said.
And by the way, give me money to cover my legal fees.
And this isn't like I'm biased one side or the other, because as Neon will tell you, there's a lot of times things that Zach said that I was like, oh, he went too far. Lots of times I said that there's things he said.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Especially early on, not so much now, but early on. I think he's. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, there have been some videos that I'll be honest. I mean, I don't believe in censorship, but there are some things that I think Zach has said sometimes. I'm like, dude, you need to walk that back a little bit, because that did cross.
So I mean, I do think he crossed some lines.
There were some lines that I thought
nothing that should have
warranted being driven out of.
Right. There's that, industry. And then there's this. This is crossing a much larger line. This is like, a big line. But
because what this basically, again, for people like us that, working around the comic book industry, past tense now, obviously, but is basically that there is a cabal of people in comics that can, if they want to, for whatever reason, keep you out of the industry. They will go to publishers, they will go to editors, and we have seen it on the other side happen firsthand.
Yeah.
It's been ramped up to an 11 since Diversity in Comics came along, since Ethan Van Sciver came along, but this has always sort of been the case in comics. You had to suck the right part, non-specific.
Yes. Let's be non-gender biased here.
No gender bias. You had to suck the right part of the right person to get the job you wanted, and that's just kind of the way it works.
Were you sucking parts on people?
I wasn't sucking anybody. I didn't suck anybody, but I don't get sucked as often as I used to. The phone does not ring anymore because
I can't. Okay,
but I'm not interested because comics pays shit.
Let's talk about sucking. Anyway, let's do this.
So okay, so. We're not going to talk about the sucking, but this got me here. So
we'll go start from the beginning. He's talking about he was sued by one of the perceived leaders of the relentless online harassment movement.
Dibbles, yes, Dibbles. That's the name of the non-gender.
yes.
Genitalia.
Okay, so
the Dibbles.
The relentless online harassment movement. Okay, here's my thing about this. I want to comment on this. Has there been some harassment? Yes. But there is every bit as much, if not more so, harassment on the other side, too. I see them baiting. I see them constantly harassing people. I see it all the time. And there is, yes, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
We're going to talk about this.
There is a most definitely harassment, but it is not a one-sided thing. It is definitely not a one-sided thing. A lot of the response has been in response to the harassment, the really bad comments, the mean abuse of the fans to begin with. So you can't, we're going to have to, it's like algebra. You know what? You're going to have to cross out on both sides there, and that's out of the argument because it's the same on both sides. So go ahead.
So what gets me is he's talking about how he's never backed down from bullies.
Wait, you have to do that part first. Okay. That what he's here for. He's here.
Okay. I'm a New York Times best-selling comics writer.
Okay. Yes, and he goes, and which I and many comics professionals strongly feel has unfairly and offensively targeted women,
people of color.
Except that I know for a fact there's a bunch of women, a bunch of people of color, and a bunch of LGBTQ people in ComicsGate as well. Yeah, again, you have to cross that out on both sides, people, because it's on both sides.
Apparently, he's defending them unless he wants to screw them out of something. So allegedly. Anyway,
God,
we're in our industry to make them feel unwelcome. That's not what started this.
I firmly believe this lawsuit is an effort to silence those of us who stand up publicly against bigotry, racism. Okay, here's my thing: bigotry and racism. I am totally against bigotry. I'm totally against racism. But that means all bigotry and all racism, not just the blaming it all on white guys. because that's what they seem to do. It's all straight white men who are the cause of everything. Right now, if you are a person of color, a woman, an LGBTQ plus person that is not on the same side as Waid, you don't exist because you're just completely marginalized. So you're already slapped down once. Now you just completely don't exist now because it's not part of their narrative. All those sheer people understand that. And then he's like, but basically, if you believe this, if you're like me and you stand with me, and that's not what this is about. But go ahead.
No, that's not really.
Diverse creators from Horizon.
Yeah, and of course, the articles he pulls up on ComicsGate are the most biased hit pieces on ComicsGate. But we'll talk about the media bias here in a little bit. I firmly believe this lawsuit is an effort to silence those of us who stand up publicly.
That's what it's read.
Yeah, that's not what's going on here. If you like, you can learn more about specifics of the lawsuit here at the Daily Dot.
All the places that are biased on his
Let's
defense.
see, what's this one? This one's Bleeding Cool. Oh yeah, Bleeding Cool. Okay, so Mark Waid just a year ago threatened to punch Jude Terror in the face.
Right.
At Bleeding Cool, but now Bleeding Cool is awesome because it's backing him up.
Everybody talked about how Bleeding Cool was like the Inquirer of comics journalism.
It was. It's garbage
and
site.
how everybody made it was a big joke until now when it takes their side. Now it takes their side. It's real news, people.
Rich Johnston was one of the most despised people in the comic book industry up until about a year ago when Bleeding Cool became a reputable news source. There were always a bunch of muckrakers because they dug up dirt on comics creators,
but
publishers.
It's okay now because
it's
they're
fine
on
now
they're on
because
their
they're on the
side.
right side. They're on the right side.
Yes. Okay. So anyway,
they're on the right side. My favorite here. YouTube. Okay, and I encourage you to visit my website. Even though I'm confident that the claims made against me are entirely without merit.
No, they have merit, dude. I'm sorry.
Dude, you bragged about it. You bragged about it. Lawsuits are time-consuming and expensive. Yeah? I've never backed down from bullies. Especially those who denigrate my friends, colleagues, and the values our community stands for.
What values are those?
What values are those?
Because they keep saying this, but they don't say what the values are. Or we're against racism, so is the other side. Against bullying, so is the other side. God, it's the same thing.
Well, I'm not a rich man, Mark. You've got more money than a lot of these people you're shaking down. You have my solemn promise I will fight this fight no matter personal cost. Dude, he's making this out like this is what gets.
As I told you, you just see the anthem in the background. Look, I'm the hero of the people. Give me the rich white guy the money so I can defend you.
He flat out said, I'm going to go mess up this guy's deal. And really, 90% of it, I am convinced 90% of it is because Mark Waid's been on the receiving end of Diversity in Comics videos, and he's pissed. Yeah, he's pissed because his friends are too, but
I don't think he thought it was going to go this far. I really don't think he thought it was going to go this far. And
here's the thing, and they don't freaking understand this. Like, the comic book industry has always been a little slow on the uptake. I mean, when it comes to like the digital economy and to YouTube and all of this, what they don't understand is they made this happen. They made this happen because they gave an inordinate amount of attention to YouTube critics. They've always been there. Mm-hmm. I mean, Diversity in Comics is not the first person to criticize comics on YouTube. It has been going on for years. It's just he grew quickly and he touched a few nerves. He
did go too far many times.
I think sometimes he went too far, but he's admitted he's gone too far. But the difference is the comic book industry set out to just personally destroy him, and all it did was make him bigger.
I know.
And bigger and bigger. And then you had other people join in and they got bigger. Like if the comic book industry, the entire comic book cabal, had not paid any attention to Richard Meyer and just let him film his videos on his couch and rant away, he would have 2,000 subs and nobody would care. But now we're looking at legal action and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
He did go. I don't think he thought it would go this far, but he went too far. He crossed line. This is not just a line like you're just like, your mama kind of thing. This is a, actual censorship, really underhanded censorship issue. And if it goes through, it's opening a door that they could do it to other people, and they're going to.
Yeah, that's what scares me. Like, okay, this is
I don't like the color of your shoes. I'm gonna make sure you don't get a book deal. You
said something on Twitter 10 years ago that I didn't like. I caught you saluting and it's the flag. I caught you standing for the national. I caught you supporting the military. Oh, that's really dicey.
Well, didn't his lawyer even say something about all the Cosby people are Trump supporters and stuff and all that?
Yeah,
and I was like, actually, I know several that aren't.
Supposedly, so I'm like, okay, so he gets his lawyer,
and I'm not. ComicsGate either, but I'm not a Trump supporter.
He gets this lawyer who's supposed to be a centrist. The guy's even like on his bio, he's like, I'm a centrist, and then immediately he's like attacking, like, I bet all these ComicsGate people like Donald Trump, and they were probably in Charlottesville. I'm like, you're just as bad as the people you're defending. Oh, thank you, Mr. Neenan did not have to do that. EVS has the Mark Waid. EVS has the Mark Waid 911 report where he was threatening people and flipping out. I would love to hear that. Is that
you know what?
available?
Well, people had it up. Here's the thing.
They did. I missed it.
No, people said they had it. Here's the thing about that. From people who have been around working in his presence, we know some of them.
Yeah.
And they have told us that, yes, that's most definitely the meltdowns do happen.
I've heard of like phones being thrown, holes punched in walls.
I'm like, any other place you work, that would get you fired.
Seen him. I mean, personally, I've seen him go off on other people.
He was always nice to us, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, I can't say. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I cannot say that we have a negative Mark Waid experience. We've had limited interactions with Mark, but they've always been professional. I think it might just depend on...
I was very surprised when everything went down. I mean, people said this is normal for him, which I didn't know. So when all this went down, I was like, what?
I heard, so nice. But, I've got a temper, too.
Yeah, but you don't throw things through walls.
Not usually.
No, if someone's going to throw something more like it, not, it's going to be me. But even then, I don't do that.
So I thought, well, maybe he just, he's got a temper. I've got a temper, So I never really gave it much thought, but apparently this is an ongoing...
I saw just some guys think, I love him. He's so great. I love him. He's so funny.
He's freaking hilarious.
I think he's funny as heck. Okay, go ahead. Anyway, go back.
Notification. Okay, so he's got the... Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, we'll go down on the... Anyway. Let's go on the best in the article. I want to point one more thing out. Then we have to move because we really can't go late today because we have to pick up our daughter. But I like the ending. If you believe as I do that women and people of color deserve to be able to do their jobs, well, I think everybody agrees with that. Or any job without being bullied. Donate. So me as a straight white guy, who, by the way, did I mention straight white guy is the cause of everything bad in the world? And any other,
for money.
And any other,
the rich straight white guy.
In any other place, like it's in Star Wars, it's all straight white guys ruining it. She-Ra, it's all straight white guys ruining it. But here, you can pay the rich straight white guy to stand up for your rights. Because, you can't stand up for your own rights. You need him to stand up for your rights for you, which actually to me is more insulting that he said that than anything. But it's like, so you're marginalized if you disagree. And then, but if you do agree, you need him to stand up for you.
Yeah, so he's basically taking upon himself to be the face of anti-ComicsGate.
Oh, if he tries to throw me for a while, I'll just pause for a minute. I would kick his ass, so and he knows it. So,
I want to hear this because my thing is like, I used to work, I used to be a journalist. I used to work for a newspaper. I used to be an editor. And now I still blog, but I mean, I used to be like an actual journalist. I would love to hear proof of this phone call because this story concerns me greatly.
Okay, now let's go on that real quick while we're here because
we'll talk about this. So Mark Waid, who's talking about like defending people of color in comics, defending women in comics. Look, it's a female person of color in comics, and apparently, allegedly, I don't know the specifics, but she's not very happy because his comic shop in Indiana, apparently, she and her husband were sort of screwed out of the comic shop. That's her side of the story. Again, I don't know the specifics, but there is mention of a phone call out there where Mark is being violent and slamming stuff in the shop. That's not going to help his case any. If you're like, hey, this guy's violent and attacking women, and meanwhile I'm throwing stuff around.
It was her husband that owned it.
Her husband owned it, but I think they both owned it together. He got into business with us. And this was, I think last week this came out. We were out of town. She has so much rage, she has to let it out. Done pretending. Now, I did know he had a comic shop in Indiana. I did not know it came from someone else.
Yeah, I didn't.
Originally, I thought he just opened it himself, and I believe like Art and Franco, Art Baldassar was involved with it or something. But apparently, these folks were involved with it first. Said he got into business with us. He created a partnership for the comic book store that was never technically legalized.
Well, that was not smart.
When his POS girlfriend decided she wanted Jason gone, he sided with her knowing it was wrong. When it got that, Jason being her husband, when it got bad and we finally lawyered up, we were told you have tens of thousands of dollars because he does.
Yeah, there you go.
Because he does. Okay, I just want to... And
Right
he's
here.
going to drag this out in
Yep,
court.
see, told
we
ya.
can win, we will win, but that's what you're going to owe in fees. Can you cover that? Because he can. I know his lawyer, and he's giddy at the prospect. I don't think this was Zaid. We let the store go. 10 years of my best friend's life was gone. 10 years of hard work realizing a dream was ripped away from him. And to add insult to injury, he left that store with $150,000 in annual sales, $100K in product and fixtures, and Mark paid him less than $5K to shut his mouth and walk away. That was our reality. A rich, recognized, wealthy white man wanted more and took it. Robbed the little guy, smeared his name, took his business, and then a year later broke up with the girlfriend and signed it all over to her like it didn't even happen. He ran, literally, flew across the country. I wonder why he wasn't living in Indiana anymore. He was living in California again. He throws money around or he runs and hides. We always heard about his temper. We didn't realize reality. This is where we were at. I've heard the stories, but we never experienced that part of Mark Waid. If you don't believe me, there's 911 tape out there, and that's what I was curious, and apparently EVS has it. So, Jason calmly calling the cops while Mark is screaming bloody murder, destroying the store in the background. Fact. Now, I don't know all the details of this lawsuit, and I really don't care. What I do know is Mark's temper got him in another situation, and he's using his popularity and fans to take money from hardworking people to fund his lawsuit. He absolutely does not need your money. That is true.
That's what made me mad about. What made me mad about it was the fact that he's spinning it as a GoFundMe because he's being wrongfully sued because he was just standing up for the little guy, and that's not what happened. That's not what happened. He crossed lines. Their lines were crossed. And
there was a line crossed. Like again, just to reiterate, you do not have to agree with what a person says. You don't have to agree with how they behave online or whatever. But when the line is crossed into, it becomes illegal to interfere in their contractual deal.
Right.
Like, again, if Mark Waid was part owner of Antarctic Press,
that's different.
That's different. He can say, wait, hold on, guys. I want you, before we do this, I want you to see this guy's Twitter. I want you to see this guy's YouTube. He has that right. But since he had nothing in it with Antarctic, he just called him up out of the blue and decided he was going to play the comic police. He was going to be the comic book officer and tank this guy's deals for what I believe to be a personal vendetta.
I have no idea why,
I think it's personal vendetta. I mean, I think he thinks he's in the right, but I think really deep down, it's a personal.
I totally agree that you shouldn't be. I mean, I'm against racism, bigotry, transphobia, all that. I'm against all that too. But I think most people are. I this whole idea that they keep spinning that if you're on our side, you're against these things, and if you're on ComicsGate's side, you're stand for all those things. It's not true. People are just saying stop talking down to your customers and stop making it political. Is the only thing I'm seeing. And it's ridiculous. I think everybody kind of agrees on those things. So,
well, yeah, Alternative Comics, same thing. Like, I mean, this is what is concerning me, and this is what whether or not you agree with, Richard Meyer, what he puts on YouTube, what he says, his politics, whatever. What this is really coming down to is, from my perspective, it's the entire mainstream comic book industry in its current form. Versus ComicsGate versus outsiders coming into being able to come into the industry and make comics. I mean, it's really what's coming down.
Yeah, we want to control who does what.
We want to control
the
spice. And that's really, at the end of it, it's really is that simple. The comic book industry has always been very guarded, has always been very incestuous. It always has.
This is not new.
This is not new. This is not new.
I think what happened was, I think because comics were going down, and it's freaking out. Yeah, it's freaking out. It's a knee-jerk reaction in a bad way, and people are scared and they're reacting poorly to the situation. Anyway, what else are you gonna talk about?
They are. But no, that's really what's so okay. So, I think all of this, if this goes to court, I don't know where this is right now. If this goes to court, I believe this sort of stuff, and his lawyer's comments. His lawyer's comments are insane. I couldn't believe
that when you told me about that. I was like, "What?"
This guy is out there baiting people on Twitter. I don't understand. Like, I was always under the impression when your lawyer tells you to shut up, and your lawyer shuts up, and they save it for the courtroom. And this guy's out there saying he's using anonymous accounts to heckle people on Twitter. I'm like, shouldn't you? I mean, is this what you're being paid for? Like, shouldn't you be, I don't know, reading law books or something? Like, isn't that what lawyers do? Lawyery things. Like, this is not how a normal lawyer.
And if you're gonna do that because you're trying to help your case, you don't admit you did it. You know what I'm saying? You don't say, well, by the way, I did this. He admitted, and I saw it in just some guy's video. He basically admitted to trolling
ComicsGate people on Twitter.
Yeah. I can't wrap my head around that.
As an anonymous
if you're going to try to troll
like,
them to get them to say things that are incriminating, which one is kind of crappy too because you're baiting, but two, you don't admit that you did it. I can't even wrap my head around it. So anyway.
Oh my God. So yeah, actually, there's supposed to be another Dune movie. I got a comment, Shadow Strike, done by the guy who did the Blade Runner sequel, which is actually really good. So yeah, I see that Zach's. Let's hit refresh on here. He's at almost $80,000 in a day. Mark Waid with all of the comic book industry. Now here's the thing: since it is sort of divided on political lines, you're going to have a lot more capitalists in the Republican camp, I think, than you are. You know, I mean, it's just, and they got money. So
well, it's just funny in this situation. This situation, specifically the lawsuit situation. I'm actually leaning towards Zach here's side because I think Waid overstepped. I don't like the things that he says sometimes that Zach says sometimes, but Waid overstepped. That being said, I'm not Republican, so you know.
Yeah, neither one of us are, and that's what's so funny about it. I mean, this is where people like Mark Waid.
I'm capitalist, but I'm not Republican.
Yeah, this is where people like Mark Waid actually cause more damage to their cause. Is when you act like fools, okay, in public, and you act like a nut in public, then you know you start taking people who are on the fence and you start pushing them
that's what's going
into
on.
the other camp.
I think that's what's going on. I very much think that's what's going on.
Like these cats here who
these
can't this guy I actually gave this guy money because he supposedly was going to lose his house.
I told you not to.
You're welcome. But these folks here are trying to.
And you know what's funny to me about these people? Because every time you mention the names, I'm like, who? You know, because like who? Who? You know, because the only reason they're claimed to fame, one's a colorist on crappy books, one's like a journalist and like a blogger. What's the other one do? But again, I'm like, who? I only know the names because they've come up, repeatedly. So their claim to fame, what they're trying to be known for, is just stirring up shit. Because as far as actual work goes, they're not that big a deal.
Now, see, this is okay. So this is Karen Shake, who again I gave Karen Shake money. Karen Shake blocks me on Twitter, but I thought, you know what? I don't think anybody should be homeless. So even though this guy blocked me on Twitter, I don't know him personally, but you know what?
Oh, I know who they are. My point was I was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know they are now.
Yeah.
When I first started, I'm like, who? Because I was like, who?
Yeah, pretty much. It was like who are these people?
I was being sarcastic. I know who they are now. One of them has actually tried to get into it with me before.
So yeah, it's a long story. So Karen Shake, who's like bounding in the comics, regularly posts news items about just like bad things that happen in my life. Karen Shake has made a career out of like bad mouthing ComicsGate. Like he's got articles all over the place, trying to tear down ComicsGate and ComicsGaters. You know, I mean, it's like, dude, you can't take the moral high ground when you are participating in the exact same behavior.
That sums the whole thing up, actually. Right there, you can sum the whole thing up in that. You can't take a moral high ground when you're participating in bad behavior to begin with. You just can't.
Yeah.
I don't even know who the guy in the middle is, honestly. I don't pay attention enough, nor do I care.
But they're out there on Twitter trying to get... Okay, so Bounding in the Comics is one of like 2 or 3 comic book news sites that is not completely far left. Because of that, and they do cover ComicsGate. I think they've been very even-handed about it. And they cover lots of comics news, lots of pop culture news, lots of, they do come from a more conservative bent than the other sites. But then again, you look at it and it's like, well, it's not hard to look like a conservative when all these sites are like so far left.
Yeah, we get called alt-right because we're centrist, but we lean left. But because we don't agree with some of the behavior, we're alt-right Nazis. So...
well, again, just to talk about like how, this kind of behavior pushes people into the other camp. How we sort of got dragged into the situation was these kinds of people, not these people in particular, but these kinds of people coming after us on social media for posting Marvel numbers on a blog that had absolutely nothing to do with comic books.
Right.
Just, because we're like, hey, Marvel's not doing so hot. And next thing you know, alt-right Nazis. I'm like, no, just guy posting sales numbers, facts, and figures. What does this have to do with anything? Not realizing what was actually going on.
Yeah, but we've said it before. But But it's just like, okay, like you look at mainstream news, you know, you have your different networks and they all have a political angle, and you have some that are far left. You know, I think most people they consider MSNBC and stuff far left, and CNN a little bit that way. And you have people that are far right, like Fox News, and then you have people that are in the middle, like BBC and stuff like that. So the central ones. What I usually do is I usually try to look in the middle. Or I look at both extremes and try, because I figure the truth somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just I just love it. You can have every news source that leans your way as the reliable news source. I mean, no matter which side you're on.
Whoever agrees with me is a reliable news source.
Like I have some family members who are very, very Republican, and all they do is watch Fox News. That's all they watch.
Yeah.
And then I have people, you know, and then we put people who are very, very, you know, to the left, and they are always on MSNBC or CNN. So, you know, it's just like you're going to watch what you agree with. And that doesn't make up the news source less. It just means that it's not what you agree with.
Right. But like all the you know 95% of the you know geek media, I guess you could call it, are very far left. You know, they're immediately taking like Mark Waid's side in this. You know, I think sometimes these sites are sort of blinded by.
They don't look into it. Honestly.
They don't really look into it because it's funny because I brought up Critical Hit. I was out here looking at this today to see what they had to say. And they basically, the first thing, like right at, one of the biggest controversies over the last couple of years in the gaming industry has easily been Gamergate, essentially a hate movement manned by fringe loonies. Gamergate fed into the rise of the right-wing malice that seems to be crapping all over the world lately, judging by how Brazil has just elected one of the worst human beings to ever live. Is this him?
No.
His office in Lamb. Why are you talking? Why are you talking about Brazil when this is about Mark Waid? Like, seriously, comic books haven't been immune to such movements either, with ComicsGate picking up the torch and allowing a vocal minority. I don't know. That's some minority. To run rampant, make the industry worse for everyone. Incensed at the very idea that comic book companies are hiring more diverse.
That's not what they're mad about.
That's not what they're mad about, and including a wider range of topics across political, gender, and race topics. No, they're not wide. That's the problem. It's very narrow.
I mean, what I love is their diversity basically boils down to certain people, certain colors, certain sexual orientations is their diversity. Like,
right.
You're doing the exact same thing in reverse and calling it diversity. Or like when you have an all white female writer's room, and then you're calling it diverse.
Diverse. You know, so which, yeah, and ComicsGate blames this more inclusive policy and slump in sales, which you can read more of here in this in-depth Bleeding Cool breakdown. Nobody would have quoted Bleeding Cool.
I know, it was like literally in the Inquirer. It's so funny.
Now, it's funny because actually Rich came on to the one article where I talked about the Marvel numbers to try to correct me, and I'm like, dude, I just posted what you said.
Yeah, I know, right?
And I didn't even attack Blinkle. I had no idea any stuff was going on until like a year ago. The movement has its fair share of voices that scream every day for attention.
So does the other side.
So does the other side. Comic book artist Ethan Van Sciver is a noble proponent of ComicsGate, as is one Richard C.Meyer, who hosts a YouTube page. Host a YouTube page. That's like grandma, like, oh, you have a web page. That's cute, honey. What's your www? That regularly attacks people in the industry. Meyer himself has a habit of making constant racist, homophobic, and sexist statements. His videos even go so far as to label top names in the industry as members of a pedophile. Wait. Meyer himself has a habit of making constant racist, homophobic, and sexist statements in his videos, even going so far as to label top names in the industry as members of a pedophile club?
I have no idea about that one.
That's news to me, and if that's the case, and this is not true, then, you know, hey, Diversity in Comics, sue this site too. One thing Meyer isn't doing, getting his comic Jawbreakers published. The original goal for Jawbreakers managed to gather over 400,000 pledges, blah, blah, the Antarctic thing. The Daily Dot reported, again, they're just like all retweeting and reposting everybody there. You know, if you read,
circle jerk.
It's a circle jerk.
It always
is. It is. And we're running out of time, and so I'm trying to speed this up a little bit. But if you read this article, you'll see that this is basically like, you know, all Mark Waid wants to do is save the comic book industry from these nasty
people
men
who don't want, from straight white men who don't want, you know, people of color and women. And, you know, LGBTQ, now there's a plus in there somehow now. They don't want, you know, those people in there. And that's not what people are saying. People are just saying, I don't have no problem with people that are diverse writing comics. I just want my characters as my characters. I don't want them changed suddenly for no reason whatsoever other than a political bent. And that's what people are saying. And that's, you know...
that's a reasonable request. I think it was a huge, I mentioned that before too. I even knew what was going on. Like,
oh, he said Zach said Slut looks like a pedophile.
I
don't know.
As Wade noted, I think a lot of comics creators.
I honestly, I've watched Zach's stuff sometimes, but I haven't watched a lot of it because like I said before, I thought he overstepped several times. But go ahead.
As Wade noticed, his lawsuit isn't just about him, but a first step in a larger pushback against the trolls.
Oh, here we go. It's not just about him. It's about him.
Oh my God. That have descended in comics lately. In a world where heroes are needed more than ever.
Oh, he's the hero?
In a world where heroes are needed more than ever, pushback against trolls and opening up comic books to an even wider audience is an idea that needs to be protected.
If that is true, then why did they harass Peter Simeti? If that is true,
that's a damn good question.
And he's out there trying to help comic shops. He's trying to get comics in other places where people would buy comics. And he's telling everybody, go buy from the comic shop. But why, if that's true, and you're just trying to reach a wider audience and you're trying to protect and embrace comic books, do you go after the one person doing exactly that?
Because they're not part of you can't control them. And really, and we've said this before. We've had videos on this before. The comic book industry has always been this way. It's always been a club. It's been ramped up to 11 since these YouTubers came along, and they're freaking the hell out. Peter Simeti, great guy, not a white guy, but you know what? He's
not a racist.
He's being called he's being called a white supremacist. I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
They're making out like Mark Waid's a hero, and I'm sorry,
heroes.
Here's my thing: Heroes don't do backdoor things, and they don't have secret groups where they try to jump somebody. Heroes don't take the route of going and taking a deal away and then doing that. Heroes don't hide in the dark and do crappy things like that and then try to tank people. That's not how heroes behave. And some of the I'll tell you what, I've seen bullying on both sides. I'm not gonna lie, I have. But I've seen far more bullying from the left to the right than I've seen from the right to the left. And as somebody who's in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen violence. I've seen property destruction. I've seen people being kicked in the head. I've seen, Jeremy Hambley got punched in the back of the head.
Bullying is bad unless you're bullying for what they believe in. Then it's okay. And that's not true. And that's not right. Bullying is shit no matter who it is. What side you are, bullying is shit. Sorry, guys, it is. Peter
Simeti, I mean, people that he basically owe their comics careers to threw him under the freaking bus. He had threats against him because he wouldn't denounce ComicsGate. I mean, this is what...
Apparently they have a 911 call where Wade's bullying somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
A female person of color, no less.
But but he's the one who's going to stop the bullying.
Out of her business.
Here's a little hint, guys. I don't care which side you're on. This is for both sides. Here's a little hint. If you want to have the high ground and you want people to listen to you and you want people, you want to be look like the voice of reason, bullying is a bad idea. Don't bully people because it's a really stupid idea because bullying is shit. Doesn't matter what side you are. Bullying sucks. Don't do it.
Yeah, but when you've got bullies...
But no, he is a bully. I know. I'm saying this.
I mean, it's so ironic. It's like bullies telling other people not to bully people. It's like, no. I mean, that's like, okay, so I got in trouble. I used to get in a lot of fights when I was a kid. I'm not going to take that long. I know we got to go here about 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes.
Okay. I used to get in a lot of fights when I was a kid. A lot of the fights I got into were not my fault. Most of the fights I got into were not my fault. I can't think of any I actually started. I usually... exception one time, I usually wound up finishing the fights. But I remember, there was a time when they would actually try to figure out, who started the fight. And it was justified if somebody punched you, that you were allowed to punch them back. I mean, yeah, you might both get hauled to the office, but, I even had the one teacher tell me one time, well, who started? I'm like, oh, he did. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to take care of it, and you go.
Because he was a known bully to begin with.
Right. And so what's going on here is, again, my personal opinion... having worked in comics, in and around comics for 15 years, having seen a lot of stuff behind the scenes, knowing how a lot of these people are, is they can dish it out, but they can't take it.
Oh, clearly.
I mean, they can dish it out, but they can't take it. The comic book industry cannot take criticism. They're fantastic at dishing it out. They want to gatekeep. They want to do all this stuff, but they cannot take it. So they're
the fact that their first reaction to any criticism whatsoever is to
crying racism, misogyny,
try
homophobia.
any news source that doesn't fully 100% agree with what they say, they shut down. If you don't 100%, I've never seen in my life as I've seen lately where if someone doesn't 100% agree with you, you have to disown them, you have to shun them, you can't speak to them because they don't 100% agree with every point you have. And I'm like, that's just crazy. I'm sorry, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Somebody has a hashtag after comics. I honestly think this is going to be the major tipping point in the decline of the mainstream comic book industry and the rise of independent comics. And unfortunately, the real losers in all of this are going to be comic shops.
Yeah,
and it's going to be consumers, because I think you're going to see fewer titles published. You're going to see fewer shops. But I think it's going to be more important than ever to connect with your audience directly. And some of these people just they can't interface with real people very effectively, and I think they're scared because they know they need that publisher to be the go-between, because they can't human very well. We've seen it on Twitter.
Yeah, we've seen it many times.
We've seen it on Twitter.
And I think a lot of people just are doing it because that's their claim to attention. I really think so. I think like certain
that's
people,
their identity is basically.
I'm like that's why I'm like, who? And it's like, because they're named now. No one knew who the hell they were, but they're only named now because they're out there poking the bear every chance they get, and then screaming when the bear swats back. And that's an analogy for both sides. I mean,
yeah.
I mean that's just
my take on this, again, just my final thoughts on this is Mark Waid went looking for a fight. Okay, Mark Waid could have. I mean, I understand he was pissed off because he was the target.
But he's supposed to be a professional.
He's supposed to be a professional. I mean, look, I understand. You're pissed when people criticize your stuff. I get pissed when people criticize my stuff too. But you took this to a whole nother
he crossed the line.
Level.
You really crossed the line with this one.
And all it did was actually make diversity in comics bigger.
They got more money for it and everything else.
Congratulations. You and your friends. You've done so well building up Zach's base, building up EVS's base. Bringing ComicsGate to the attention of people who otherwise wouldn't have known about it, and then they look into it and they agree with it.
They're dismissing of fans, and the way they've treated fans who didn't agree with them have just pushed them to that way too, or that people might have sided with them. They're not going to side the other side. No. But that's basically what happened. If they had just left it alone, they truly, honestly believed that this was subpar quality and it was going to tank and fail, and the cream would rise to the top, and they had nothing to worry about. Why did they make a big issue out of it?
Because they know. I'm
just saying, they made their own issue.
You made your own enemy. It's like you made your own enemy. It's just like, I mean, seriously, it's just like a comic book. It really is. It's like you created the villain. You think is a villain, but you actually are the villain. And now you've got this problem you've got to deal with, and now you think you can take the moral high road, and it's like you can't. You've been slumming it.
Yeah, but what I'm just saying is, if you were so convinced that this is going to it was going to fail, it was going to do terrible, like you're saying now, if you just kept your mouth shut, let the market determine it, it would have got, if you were so sure that was what was going to happen, then it would, it would have been over. You could let it go and let everybody just do your own thing, worry about your own deals, let them worry about their stuff. Everybody just mind their own damn business. It would have been okay. But no. We got to make an example of these people. And there's several people I can think of on Twitter. One person in particular, I'm not going to mention. We haven't mentioned this person at all. But their whole Twitter persona is just going around and stirring up shit to get themselves attention and grow their Twitter fan base. Screaming about stuff that they themselves are doing themselves, but then pointing the finger at everybody else. And there's several of these people out there. One person I know in particular drives me crazy because they're the lying sack of crap. Anyway.
It's like, when do you actually have time to make comic books? Because I see a lot of tweeting. I see a lot of bitching. I see a lot of talking to reporters and pseudo reporters. When do you actually make the comic books? Because I'd love to know. Because there's an awful lot of free time. It used to be the comic book artists would work like 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day. Not anymore, apparently.
Waid used to be all about helping. I mean, for a while there, he was about independent comics, because that's why he started doing Throwback and stuff. He was trying to get in with the independents and with the web comics, and he thought there was promise there, and it went from that to this. So anyway, we got to wrap it up though. So
yeah, we're gonna wrap this one up, guys. Just giving our thoughts on it. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how this is gonna go, but the fact that Waid is out there bragging about it, You know, it could be illegal. It could be illegal. You
I
might
don't
lose.
know.
And if he loses, you know, what's the fallout of that? I mean, you know, the comic book industry, personally, I think they're going to come back and try to find some other way to.
Well, they're just not going to let it go.
Tank
they're
these
just
books.
going to keep doing it.
They're not going to let go.
And here's the thing, though. You don't need their permission. You don't, like I said before, people want to do comics. You don't need to go through mainstream publishers. You don't need to go through the comic book shops. You don't need to do it anymore. So it doesn't matter if they don't want you to do it because you don't need them to. You don't need their permission. But
no, and that's what, yeah, I think definitely this is going to be good for independent comics because this, if nothing else, shows how messed up the mainstream comic book industry is right now.
And if you're worried, I can't do my book because they're going to come after me because I'm on the wrong, I have the wrong wrong mindset or whatever, and they're going to stop me. They really can't. If
Bullshit.
you want to do your comic, do your damn comic. Don't worry about them. Worry about yourself. Just go do it. And I'm going to keep telling everybody 100 times, 1,000 times over. If you want to do it, just go do it. Just do it. Do you. You do you. Anyway.
All right. So
don't cross lines.
We are going to wrap this up. If you guys haven't been out to the Discord yet, check out our Discord. I'll try to get that. Well, actually, the description is in the show notes. And we definitely appreciate the support. And sorry we haven't had any videos in a week. Like I said, we travel a lot.
We were home. We were gone.
We were gone, so we were getting tan. And we'll be getting tan here in another couple weeks. So if we disappear, don't freak out. But we do appreciate talking to everybody. And we're gonna wrap this one up.
Yeah, just be better.
Be better. Be better.
Be better than what than this.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you later.
All right. See you guys.